7-2. A win here probably puts him in the top 8.
Would seem so. Probably in a position to draw.
Taking a look at this heroic deck. Heliod's Pilgrim has shown up. 4 copies of that. Haven't seen that one for a while. Small little tutor engineer for an aqueous form. I've gotten 1 copy of Ordeal of Heliod. Of course, 4 copies of Ordeal of Thassa. And a Stratuswalk.
It's a very old school approach. This is kind of closer to the builds we saw in the back half of 2014.
Both players starting off with basic lands. Moline will very quickly play a fetch land. That's Wooded Foothills. Sacrifice that, get a mountain, and we are underway here in round number 14 of 15 from Los Angeles. We'll see what Moline has on turn at number 2 here. Started off with an Elvish Mystic.
So this is not quite a devotion strategy, but it's definitely a ramp strategy. A lot of mana acceleration and a lot of good 5 and 6 mana plays.
This card's very powerful in turn 2.
This opening is pretty hard to do, given the mana constraints of the format. There's no stopping ground, but when it happens, it is really powerful.
Elvish Mystic into Goblin Rabble Master. The Goblin token already comes in for 1, and immediately Nicholas Allen is under the gun. Now there's a Hero of Iroas. Moline draws his card for the turn. Copy, of course, of Crewfix. See if he's got a removal spell here. He's just got a Courser, so he'll play that. Take a look at the top card. It's a copy of Windswept Heath. That'll come into play. Trigger, the Courser, gain a life. We'll see the next card of his deck in just a moment here. That's an End Hostilities. That'll throw you for a loop.
Yep. Your old Elvish Mystic and the Goblin Rabble Master into another creature into End Hostilities curve. Pretty standard stuff.
Here's the attack with the Rabble Master and the Goblin tokens. Not for Nicholas Allen. You're wondering, okay, what the heck's going on here?
Also, how are you supposed to play this game? Because he's got to be able to beat the board, which involves deploying his own board, which runs right into the potential End Hostilities. So Nicholas in a bit of a squeeze.
Here, Iroas is going to eat a Goblin token. A bunch of damage is going to come across here. And we'll be heading back Allen's way in just a moment. There's the Plains. Time to see what the follow-up's going to be, assuming that there is one.
And unfortunately for Nicholas, this old school take on the deck means he's playing only 1 copy of Ordeal of Heliod, which he has Heliod's Pilgrim to help tutor for, but in this matchup, the way this game is shaping up, it's going to be pretty hard for Nicholas to win conventionally. Answering to the board, outclassing David on the board seems like it's going to be very hard to do. And so gaining a bunch of life and making something huge is a way to work around that, but not clear that's going to be in the cards here for Nicholas.
Seeker of the Way and a passing of the turn. Stubborn Nile at the ready here for Nicholas, though it will not be ferocious. And Hostility is the draw. Mana Confluence on top of the deck. Here's 3 mana. Looks like it's time for another Courser, and it is. Now I'll play the land, gain 2 life. And then we'll see the top card of the deck here for Dave in just a second. There's a copy of Sylvan Caryatid. That's a good one to shuffle away, thanks to the Windswept Heath. So down 1, then +2.
And this is such a good position for David to be in, because he can just push his board as much as he wants. Nicholas kind of has to answer in kind. David has a lot more card advantage built into this deck because Nicholas has a lot of creature enchantments that are dead draws, a lot of underpowered creatures and so forth. And then when the time's right, he can just deploy that End Hostilities. He doesn't have to go to it if he doesn't want to, but that option's always there.
After a healthy shuffle here from Moline, we'll see what the top card of his deck is. That's a copy of Wooded Foothills. Elspeth also in hand here for David.
Elspeth and End Hostility is a great pairing here as well.
Goblin token to come in. Everybody's getting in the red zone here. There are your blocks, so it's time to get the Rabble Master off the table. That'll trade with Seeker of the Way. Goblin token will bite the dust. 3 damage will come through. Now we're going to go back Nicholas Allen's way. So he still has a heroic threat in play, but he hasn't been able to get anything going yet so far this game. And it's pretty tough to get things going when you know your opponent has a copy of End Hostilities in hand.
David's just sitting on a very powerful hand right now. It gives him so much flexibility with how he wants to play the game.
And there's an Elvish Mystic.
It's a very weird setup. A lot of mana creatures alongside End Hostilities. But the mixture of cards David has drawn this game makes for a very powerful combination.
Temple of Enlightenment also in hand here for Allen. And there's Defiant Strike. That, of course, will trigger Heroic. So now it's time to draw a card.
We've been talking a lot about Ivan Jen's run, the only player playing his build of Jeskai. David Moline, the only player on Naya mid-range. Could be a top 8 full with a lot of one-ofs.
Yep.
This was the only copy of this deck in day 2.
It's a standard format where you're certainly allowed to brew.
Yeah.
I think David has run to what looks like a pretty good matchup, too. At least this game.
Mana acceleration into problematic creatures like Goblin Rabble Master, Pelucranos, with the backup of End Hostilities. That's a good mixture against a heroic deck. All those cards are problematic.
There's a Windswept Heath. Alan will sacrifice that and go get a Plains. Of course, you might be wondering why the off-colored fetch land. Well, there is a main deck copy of Treasure Cruise. There's also another one in the sideboard.
I was actually going to say, I've been covering this white-blue heroic deck for a while now. I'm surprised that you don't see a random Heath or a random Delta thrown in there from time to time.
There's another Hero of Iros.
Because the deck really isn't that good at filling up its graveyard for Treasure Cruise. There's not that many spells. A lot of it's enchantments. When your creatures are dying and in your graveyard, it often means that Treasure Cruise doesn't even matter.
Yeah, that's how it normally fills up the graveyard, is your creatures getting killed. Wooded Foothills, the draw. Top card, Sylvan Caryatid. Windswept Heath will come in, trigger both coursers. Going to gain 2 life here, will David. He'll sacrifice Windswept Heath. He'll lose 1, then he'll gain 2. So +1 total. There goes the Caryatid. And there's a Plains. So we'll see the top card of his deck in a moment, but you'll notice that he does have access to 6 mana here, 2 of which is white. So Elspeth Sun's Champion could be coming to play here in a moment.
And there's a Stubborn Denial in Nicholas's hands, but I don't think he can fill the Ferocious requirement, and David with 7 total mana in play.
Yep.
So Elspeth should be resolving as well.
Caryatid on top. So End Hostilities, Elspeth, and a mystery card, which is Wooded Foothills in David's hand. I was just trying to figure out how he's supposed to move forward here. Is he scared of some sort of counter spell? He's got the mana to pay for Stubborn Denial. He's just going to send everybody in. So Stubborn Denial actually could take care of Elspeth here.
Yep. I mean, if David's hand here is again some attacks, and then after combat resolve Elspeth, Stubborn Denial gets Nicholas potentially right back in the game.
Mm-hmm. There are the blocks. A little bit of damage is dealt. It does make me wonder if he wants to cast it this turn. I'd be surprised if he doesn't try to deploy Elspeth. I think it was just better served pre-combat than post. Yep, there's Stubborn Denial. That one matters a lot, too, because David's kind of out of gas. His top card's Sylvan Caryatid.
Yeah. He still is sitting on the End Hostilities the whole time, so he's got an insurance policy in case things start going awry, but Nicholas does have an opportunity to potentially get Ordeal of Heliod online. The problem, of course, is he's also falling behind on the board. He's at 7. So he has to be very careful with how he sets up his blockers on the way back.
Temple left that card on top very quickly. Here Virosis is going to attack with an Ordeal of Thassa. Looks like Allen may have overpaid a little bit there for the Ordeal, but no going back now. Hopefully he doesn't need that extra mana. And just pass the turn back. Moline will draw. That's the carry added. Top card of the deck is Shaman of the Great Hunt. That's a new one.
That's a big one.
Yep.
It's a haste threat, so if David has an opportunity to finish off the game, he can do that. He also has enough mana where if the board stalls out, he can just play Shaman and start drawing some cards.
Yep. Everybody's coming in. 4 points of damage will come across. Might be able to just whittle him away just enough to get the game over with.
Yeah. That's the problem with Nicholas here. This deck does not play very well when it's behind, when it's losing.
Never has. There's a Heliod's Pilgrim. Maybe it's time to search up the old Ordeal of Heliod. It is. He needs 10 life.
Yep. It's not a bad turn. David has a very high life total, unfortunately.
The Stoneforge Mystic of standard one-man set.
It's a white 1/2. You pick up your deck, find a particular card type. Has showed up in some winning decks. Very similar. Basically the same card.
Yeah. There is the Ordeal trigger. Nicholas will go up to 13. He'll be an attack here for 7. We're going to go back David's way. Shaman of the Great Hunt to draw Elvish Mystic on top of the deck. He'll sacrifice his Wooded Foothills, lose 1 to gain 2. It's a forest or a mountain, and it will be a mountain. So it might be time for Shaman of the Great Hunt. We'll see.
I think so. The question that I have now is how much does David leave back on defense?
Sure.
I think you want to leave some chump blockers in this spot. I'm happy to attack with the Shaman and the 2 copies of Corsair Crewfix. Those are basically free. But I think that I would leave some creatures back to chump block and the mana creature back to activate Shaman of the Great Hunt.
Top card's a Temple of Plenty. That'll come into play as no land was played. The Foothills is already in play, so trigger the Courser, gain 2 life. Take a look at the top card. Shamanic Revelation. Nick's going to take a look, see what that does, so we can do the same. You draw a lot of cards.
Yeah.
That's the trick. Now David's deciding if he wants to keep it on top. I think he does.
The Sard seems pretty well suited for this spot.
It's a nice fun to have, too. Not sure how much the Ferocious comes into play, though.
I'm hard-pressed to imagine David's average draw step is better than this.
Sure. There's the Shaman. Here are the attacks. Everybody coming in. He's got no interest in holding back. 2, 4, 5, 6 points of damage will come across. Can't forget these creatures are all going to grow as well. Now we're going to go Allen's way. And as you mentioned, it's just a deck that doesn't play very well from behind. You know, Ordeal, if you like that 10 life, can maybe buy you a turn.
Right. Once David's board is this good. This is also a spot where you can see the merits of the red splash. David's playing this way thinking there's no way he's going to be able to get 10 more counters.
Yep.
But the old T-Rebel Rage could have killed him here.
What a heck of a way to steal a game. Looks like a Battle-Wise Hoplite might come down here. Stratus Walk in Allen's hand. He's got some creatures to deploy, but those creatures are outclassed on this board.
Yeah, big time.
There's another hero of Iroas. There's a Stratus Walk. Draw a card, of course, with the Stratus Walk since it does cantrip. Tranquil Cove will come in. A life will be gained. This is all small stuff.
Yep.
Don't think this leads to him turning the corner or winning the game. We'll attack here in the air. I think this might be his last attack of the game.
Well, on board, he's not surviving combat.
Yeah.
So we'll see if Nicholas has some sort of trick, but if it is what it is, then he's just dying to an Alpha Strike.
Shamanic Revelation, the draw. Elvish Mystic on top of the deck. Scary thing here, too, is that David's never had to cast that in hostilities.
And that's the other thing I was about to mention. Even if things go awry here, he can just reset everything. And at this stage of the game, the top of his deck is a lot better than the top of Nicholas's deck. Curious what David is contemplating here.
I think he might be considering just casting Revelation now.
I would at least go through combat first.
Sure.
Because you have a Courser in play, you have to reveal everything you draw. And I would not want to show Nicholas anything because the most likely scenario is he just dies inside of combat right now.
It looks like he's considering casting a spell here.
Because to me, the two possibilities are you attack and Nicholas dies. That's the most likely thing. Or you attack and something weird happens and you may want to pull the trigger on end hostilities to not die. In both of these situations, you're better served not casting the Revelation because you don't want to show anything and you need to cast end hostilities in the bad scenario.
So we see here, with this attacks, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points of damage will come across. Now here's an Giant's Presence that'll keep favorite Hoplite alive. And so now, Alan's going to go down to 1. And damage will be dealt. Shaman of the Great Hunt will get some counters to some creatures. And then Shamanic Revelation will actually allow for some life to be gained here that I think is actually going to matter quite a bit.
Yeah. Because there's still some triggers coming across from the Shaman.
Yeah. Well, one creature is going to become a 4-power creature. It'll be the Courser of Krufix that got through.
So it's draw, grip, and gain 8.
Should be gain 4. There's only going to be one 4. Well, there's only going to be one 4-power creature in play because the Shaman of Great Hunt's going to trade.
He's trading off. Correct.
Yep. So this will grow. This will grow. This will grow. Those will trade. Those will bounce. Presence, of course, resolves. So it's 9-1. And then I believe he has to cast Revelation because he can just die on the counterattack.
Well, the other play that he can make is go end hostilities, carry added. Untap, he's drawing Elvish Mystic. He can then go Elvish Mystic, Revelation for 2.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with this is exactly what just happened, which is you leave your opponent with a favorite Hoplite, which I just don't love.
Yeah.
He's just so far ahead in this game. And Revelation here could have gained 4 life and drawn you 5 cards. Now, there's a possibility that he dies on the attack back. I find it unlikely, since he would have went from 9 to 13, though there was an 8/8 creature in play.
It's close. I don't know. I don't mind this play because you got an opponent with 1 card in hand. And your carry added, as things look right now, is good enough to bounce off. You get to untap, play another creature, and draw 2.
Sure.
And then it's their top of deck against your top of deck. I don't know. It's really close.
This game's only got a lot more interesting, that's for sure. Here's the Elvish Mystic. I would want to Revelate here. I know it's only 2 cards, but I would still want to. You need to take a damage to do it. I'll draw 2. It's an expensive way to draw 2 cards, but it's better than nothing. Yeah. Would have drawn. I drew 2 lands, so here's a temple. I'll leave that card on top. We'll find out what that is next turn, assuming there is a next one. Alan will draw a card.
What a weird game.
Yeah, I thought that there was no way that David could lose this game. Now it's gotten very strange. Otherwise, Hotline's going to come into the red zone. There's a block. Maybe something like a Defiant Strike. The God's willing, okay. Using that to just get Carriata out of the way.
It's a scry now. He's got a 3/3.
Yep.
It's a good turn. He can only attack with 1 because he's on 1, so Elvish Mystic is lethal.
Master of the Unseen was the draw step. That's what he kept on top. So you can play this and activate it not once but twice now.
Yeah, this is really powerful.
Yeah. This card is basically unbeatable and limited. I know that. I've had the pleasure of playing with it. Haven't seen it much constructed, but it's certainly looking interesting right now.
Yeah, my prediction for this was this will be good against blue-black control and blue-white control style decks. But we have seen some main deck copies of it this weekend.
Yep.
Sort of a debut.
Nicholas is pulling cards out of his graveyard pretty fast. So that means it's a treasure cruise. Here come 3 cards. Ordeal of Thassa among them. Heroic is really staying in this thing, jeez.
Surprising. I mean, these have been some very cooperative top decks here.
For sure. There's the Ordeal, it'll trigger the Hoplite. It becomes a 4/4. Top card goes to the bottom. There's a land for the turn. And just a passing.
A little surprised to see not another manifest there.
Yeah, a little bit. It's a good spot to take the chance to do that.
Gives you a lethal attack.
Yep.
You know, it's your 3 cards against their 2 with him at 1.
Gotta pay a life here for something. Now here's a manifest. Now here's 5 mana, so let's see what this is going to be. It's a copy of Whisperwood Elemental. So that means at the end step, how about another manifest? And we'll pass the turn back. But there are still some ways here for Nicholas Allen to win this game. It's very scary. That could help.
Well, with David on 9, I think he's going to be a little bit short.
With a very quick search Rockways for him.
I mean, Nicholas can hold up appearances like he has some way to stop an Alpha Strike, but David's hand's going to be forced next turn. He's just dead.
No.
So he's going to have to attack. I suppose there's the hope that this could generate some sort of running Defiant Strike type of situation and cobble together a kill.
There's a Defiant Strike. It's close.
It is really close. There it
There's
is.
God's willing. That gonna do it?
That's it. I mean, that's 9.
Wow. Wow.
Wow. Okay. Nicholas Allen up a game.
Well, I did not expect that. That's for sure. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
I am taken aback.
I mean, a lot of credit goes to Nicholas for fighting on there. That game was looking so bleak at so many different spots. I think a lot of people would have considered a concession, but He got some lucky breaks there with that ordeal of Thassa. Probably got an extra turn in there that he shouldn't have gotten, and now he's up a game.
All right, well, we're going to turn our attention to the sideboards here. We will start with David Moline's Naya mid-range deck. What's he got in the sideboard?
3 copies of Arc Lightning, a Shaman of the Great Hunt, a Xenagos the Reveler, 2 copies of Nissa Willwaker, a Reclamation Sage, 2 Destructive Revelry, 3 copy of Glare of Heresy, 2 copy of Arbor Colossus. I'm not a fan of Destructive Revelry in this matchup, and I'm okay bringing in Reclamation Sage because it's just a body. On top of that, I really like the 3 copies of Glare of Heresy. The rest of the sideboard's not really that attractive. I think Xenagos is okay in these kind of matchups. There's some spots where the Hero deck can't really beat a token being cranked out every turn. It just chump blocks the one big thing. So I'm happy with Xenagos.
Johnny's Presence, 2 Bermass, King of Oresco, a Disdainful Stroke, and Erase, 3 Glare of Heresy, a Mortal Obstinacy, an Ordeal of Heliod, 3 Stubborn Denial, a Treasure Cruise, and a Triton Tactics on the heroic side.
I like the Treasure Cruise a lot. I like the additional copy of Ordeal of Heliod. I definitely like the Johnny's Presence. The copies of Glare of Heresy, I could see some of them coming in. And the Disdainful Stroke. A lot of expensive stuff in David's deck.
All right, well, these players are going to shuffle up here for game number 2. And while we wait, we will talk about Dylan Donegan's fantastic Invitational winning token. He won our Season 4 Invitational last year to qualify for our Players' Championship. This is what he's got, a beautiful elemental, and these are the ways to get it. Yeah,
the token goes to everyone who wins an Invitational, and you have a couple different ways of getting it yourself. You can register for any 20K Open Series, the 2-day events like what's happening right now, any of our 5K Premier IQs, or any order from StarCityGames.com, and access to $5. This is a limited time offer, though, so if you want to get your hands on the Dylan Donegan Elemental token, either sign up for one of our large events or place an online order today.
So game number 1 was an unexpected result. I thought that David Moline was going to very easily win game number 1, but that was not the case. Nicholas Allen stole that one, so we'll see what happens here in game 2. As one of these players will be playing elimination rounds, this is a win-in match. That is for sure.
Yeah, that was a pretty crazy win there for Nicholas.
So I did not expect it, that's for sure.
It felt like David, the whole game kind of had him squeezed from both angles because of his presence on the board, plus the end hostilities. There was the turn where he has the option of either casting Shamanic Revelation or he can end hostilities. I think that turn's really close because there's some risks on both sides of that play.
Absolutely.
The way that David played it, it seemed like he had a pretty big edge going in there. There was one turn where there was a missed activation of Master of the Unseen and could have presented lethal. That gave Nicholas the window to set up an ordeal of Thassa, get some timely Defiant Strikes and such, and steal game number 1.
Well, game number 2 will be underway here in just a moment, but if you are just joining us, we do appreciate having us. We appreciate having you. Center Phil is Patrick Sullivan, along with Nick Miller on the sideboard and the rest of the SCG Live crew. At SCG Live, hashtag SCGLA for your tweets, as we don't have a lot of tournament left. We've got this round, of course, next round, and 3 elimination rounds before we do call it quits here in Los Angeles. But a lot of players to come out to do battle this weekend. 543 for our Standard Open. Got a bunch of players playing in our Modern Legacy Opens today as well. So the LA Convention Center and the LA Local is always treating us right.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good convention city, too. LA gets a bad rep, both in a general sense and a convention city.
I hate Los Angeles.
You hate LA?
Yeah. I hate it.
It has taken about 10 years, but the city has grown on me.
I'll come right at them. It's mostly because of their sports teams.
That's
arrogance.
That's where you and I mostly agree.
The arrogance of these fans. I can't deal with it. That's mostly it, honestly. There's some nice things here. It's nice. It's warm. I like it. But there's just too much to say. There's not enough time.
It's a little role reversal for the two of us.
It's not
here.
enough time. They're unrealistic, then they're unrelenting.
Sure.
As a wise man once said, it's that Cali mentality.
James Gates.
Yeah.
Former Standard Open runner-up.
That's correct. There is a Plains. This is Battlewise Hoplite. Pass that turn back. A little bit of a slower start here for David. Last game we saw the old Elvish Mystic and a Goblin Rabble Master. This game a little bit different.
Yep. And David's deck is not really flush with removal. That's part of the problem that he has in this matchup. It's not like he's stoked with he's come flush with a bunch of wild slashes and lightning strikes and so forth.
Three mana. There's an Arc Lightning. That'll take care of the Battle-Wise Hoplite.
Arc Lightning, one of those cards where when you get to trade 1-for-1 with it in the matchup, it's a huge victory.
Yep.
I think on the play, it's probably good enough to bring in. I think on the draw, it's not going to get the job done.
There's a mountain. Color's not an issue. There's an Arc Lightning yet again. 2 for 2. Battle-Wise Hoplite's biting the dust. Alan will draw. There's a Temple of Enlightenment. Take a look at the top card. It goes to the bottom. And just passing the turn back, so perhaps Nicholas Allen is out of heroic creatures.
Very good sign for David. Dealt with the first two. Doesn't appear to be a follow-up, at least for now.
There's no mistake in a passing of the turn. We'll go back Nicholas Allen's way. Favorite Hoplite to draw. Does have a Bramaz King of Oreskos. Perhaps wanting to play Bramaz with God's Willing at the ready.
Pretty good setup.
Yep.
It's not like a red-based removal deck is going to have that many answers to Bramaz. It appears as though David has drawn one of his sideboarded copies of Arbor Colossus.
With the ability to cast it, actually.
I'm not a big Arbor Colossus fan in the matchup. There's not that much flying in White-Blue Heroic, and David's deck in particular, it's not like it's a guarantee he can cast Arbor Colossus on turn 5. There's a lot of different basic lands in this list.
The card was not God's Willing. It was actually a copy of Johnny's Presence that he was looking to use as protection. Glare of Heresy does a nice job of getting around that, that's for sure.
Part of the reason Glare is one of the best cards you can have against White-Blue Heroic, it's basically saying God's Willing or bust. A lot of the other protection effects don't work.
Here's a Battle-Wise Hoplite and a favorite Hoplite. Back David's way. He'll draw a card. Looks like another copy of Arbor Colossus. Does have End Hostilities in hand. He's going to go with the big guy, the big 6/6.
And David's got to find a way to make both these large creatures and his end hostilities convert into a real game plan. It's going to be hard. You know, I think a reasonable game plan here is to block with Arbor Colossus, bleed out a bunch of tricks from Nicholas if you can, and then hope that your copy of End Hostilities resolves. But that's draining a lot of resources. There's no guarantee that plan works.
Ordeal of Thassa, trigger the Battle-Wise. Gotta make a big creature to get through Arbor Colossus, that's for sure.
It looks like Nicholas has the tools to do so. I think what he wants to do ideally is get both the Ordeals firing off this turn and be able to play an untapped white source of mana for Ajani's Presence, so he has protection from, you know, Elspeth's Champion or End Hostilities or what have you. But if he doesn't have a land on top of the deck, then it's a little bit risky to go for the two Ordeals, because if David's able to follow up with a removal spell, it's bad times.
There's a trigger for the Ordeal, so we're coming in. That's a 5/5. There's a block. There's an Ajani's Presence, so he gets to win that battle. Gets a scry, too. Top card to the bottom. Bye-bye Arbor Colossus. Pass that turn back. And then he'll draw a card. Copy of Windswept Heath.
I think this just has to be End Hostilities this turn.
I think so, too.
Because then you have an Arbor Colossus to follow up with.
Yep, there is End Hostilities. There's another copy of Johnny's Presence. This is a beaten.
Yeah, now Arbor Colossus is just a chump blocker.
Yep, which is pretty impressive that a 6/6 is now a chump blocker.
Part of the reason I'm sketchy up in this matchup, tapping out for a 5-mana play, where there's no guarantee of it being able to actually provide any defense. Pretty tough road to try to hoe against White Blue Heroic. And now with God's Willing to draw for Nicholas, David's basically on, you know, it's got to be Elspeth or End Hostilities, like, right now.
And there's an ordeal, so this thing's only getting bigger. Trigger there, gets the scry if he'd like. You definitely see some nerves there on Nicholas Allen's side.
Listen, after what happened there, game 1, I would be a little shaken too.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a pretty incredible game to win. And now it looks like right on the verge of locking up a berth in the top 8.
Looks like it's going to be an attack here for 9. 2-turn clock conveniently. Players get the life totals all synced up here. You can see David's hand. His last card's a copy of Arbor Colossus. The follow-up there is a favorite hoplite. A little bit of a hedge against Elspeth.
Yep.
David will draw. It's a mountain. He'll sacrifice his Windswept Heath. He'll go down to 8, search up a land. It'll be Arbor Colossus time in just a moment here. But it doesn't look like it's going to be quite good enough.
This is a real demonstration of why you need a specific game plan against White Blue Heroic. David did fine this game. He had End Hostilities. He killed the first 2 plays that got made. A Glare of Heresy was rolled into all of this, but unless you're attacking from multiple fronts and applying pressure yourself, these individual cards, they're fine, but they're not good enough to swing the matchup.
The draw is a Windswept Heath. That's a God's Willing. That's going to name green. That is going to get the job done. Nicholas Allen is going to win this match here over David Moline. 2 games to 0. White Blue Heroic will take care of 9 mid-range. That means we've got our second person in the top 8 here.
Yeah, congratulations to Nicholas there with a pretty insane comeback there in game 1. Stuck to it in a game, honestly, I think there's a good percentage of players who might have packed it up there. But kept drawing a timely Treasure Cruise, an Ordeal of Thassa into the perfects. Got out of that first game, and then game 2, a pretty one-sided affair. Even though David had some good tools, Nicholas able to weather the storm.
Well, back to the booth we will.